we're so honored to have our next set of speakers. We have Dr. Larry Miller and his son, Mark Miller. Now, the reason I thought it would be really great to have Mark, especially on in the symposium today, because we've been talking about blue zones and we've been talking about the 9 indicators or 9 common denominators that people that lived longer had in common. We know that there's blue zones all over the world. And Mark Miller is going to talk a little bit about, well, I really wanted to talk at length, but we're going to do what we can. Mark's going to talk a little bit about his journey in creating purpose for his life. Now, remember, we looked at indicators of longevity. We looked at community. We talked about being married. We talked about a vegan based or a vegetarian slanted diet. Now we're going to talk about one of the other 9 indicators of success and longevity, which is creating purpose. Let me give you some background. Mark, it is so great to have you. Thank you, Mark. I know that you're so humble and you think, you don't have much to say, but man, your story is amazing. To give some background to our audience, you enlisted in 92 or 93 into the Navy. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
And eventually, I know you became a special assignment. Is that like was it a sharpshooter or what is that title?
Uh, so I wore a lot of hats in the Navy, and towards the end of my career, I ended up in a force protection anti-terrorism unit that would travel over the world, and it had significant training and specialties in that unit. And I became a certified sniper in that unit. And it was designed to fight terrorism worldwide on a 24-hour notice.
Right. Now, one of the things that a lot of people may not know about you, it is not your natural nature to be a sniper, to be a sharpshooter, or anything like that. You are one of the most spiritual individuals I've ever met. I know you have a huge faith life. So, do you think there was almost something unnatural that you had to take on, a purpose for your life that was given to you by your job assignment?
Yes, that was well said. I truly believe that in this life we are put in situations that are above us to develop our faith and to develop our character of who we are. So to answer your question, yes, I do believe I was put in something far beyond me. Yes.
So some of the things you had to do were probably beyond our what we could comprehend, because in 2007 you attempted to take your life in Mexico. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. There was a lot of things leading up to that. And being a faith-based person and with morals and faith, it was not my mindset. Suicide is not a mindset for me. And that part of it was induced by a psychiatric drug, but there was a lot of trauma and craziness leading up to that as well.
Right. And I know that you took some the VA gave you medication to help with what seemed like erratic behavior, but it seems like it really the medication pushed you over the edge even more, and you came up with this elaborate design of how you were going to take your own life. Now, Dr. Miller, you were following your son kind of on this, you're on his trail. And tell us a little bit about your journey as this happened to your son.
Yeah, absolutely. When Mark first was about 20 years old, he came and told me, "Hey, Dad, I'm going to go into the Navy." And I said, "When?" And he said, "3 days." I said, "Oh, wow, okay." Uh, and I knew Mark was kind of looking for something to do. He needed a purpose. But so I said, "Well, that's military is probably good for that." But I was worried that he was a very gentle soul. Everybody admired him. We called him Sparky because he was such a lovable guy. And what was the military going to do to him? So I noticed in the military, and the first thing they did in boot camp, of course, is wipe him clean of any of his past memories, or, well, maybe not his memories, but certainly his way of thinking. And they reprogram them to do whatever the commander says to do without reason, without thinking, just to be a good soldier. So he was, and he went and served in the Navy very, very honorably until 9/11. And before 9/11, he retired after 6 years in the Navy. And he came back home and he started painting, which he's a wonderful painter, and expressed some of his inner feelings. And I could see some of the areas that he was distraught and depressed through his paintings. And then after 9/11, he felt compelled to go back into the Navy more than just to be a shipsman, but he wanted to do something important. So he joined this special detachment, Delta 22, that was going to protect high asset things around the world. And so Mark always liked guns, but not for killing people. We used to target practice, and he was very good at target practicing. And we used to shoot clay pigeons and things like that. And we lived out in the country, and he liked that. So he was a tremendously good marksman. And I think that the Navy understood that, and they recognized that he was a great marksman. And so they enticed him to come in and be a sniper. And he had all the qualifications to be a sniper, except killer. And that went against his moral being. And why should I kill another human being? Yet that's something a sniper has to do. And the reason they have to do it, of course, is because to save other lives and for the mission and so on. So this concerned me, and I saw his struggles through his years in the Navy that he was going through, and it did concern me as a father very much.
Well, you knew your son. He was very meek, still is. He's come out of that journey. It's just an honor to know both of you. But knowing Mark, if anyone ever again meets him, the most gentle individual. In fact, I have pictures of him with his new baby lambs. Are those? Uh,
Yeah,
go,
yeah, go. Yep. Mm-hmm.
But a picture is worth 1,000 words. Dr. Miller, did you have, or Diane, could you show us a picture so we could just really get to understand the man that Mark had to become to do his job that was given to him? So here's an assignment. Here's a life purpose that was given to him. Diane, do we have those pictures? If we could flash that on the screen. I'm sure she'll get those together. But and while we're waiting for Diane to bring some of those the footage up or any pictures up, Mark, how so you've decided at this point, it was about 2007, you were going to take your own life. I know the pros, well, the medication, we won't mention the specific medication, but we know the psychotropic medication almost made you delusional because the plan that you created to take your own life was pretty elaborate. And we won't talk a lot about it because there's kids watching today and we don't want anyone to get into. Okay, there we are. Guys, that right there, that is Mark. And I've never seen a gun that size. Thank you so much for that, Diana. Guys, if you can imagine a very gentle soul that had to become a fighting machine. And in doing his job, yes, Mark.
If I may, I would have to say also that I'm not the only one that is like this in the military. There's a lot of women that have joined that it's not really their character, but they said they want to serve the nation, and they do it, and they do it wholeheartedly. I don't think I'm the only one. I am a little bit unique in that respect, but I'm not the only one. There's other service members that have joined, and that's what boot camp is supposed to do. See, when a person goes through boot camp, they're supposed to weed out people that are not really supposed to be there, okay? And many of the trainings are supposed to weed people out that are not supposed to be. But there's a lot of people that are in the military, and not just the military, but EMS, firefighters, police, that are really, their character's not designed for it, but they're doing it to the very best that they can do it, and we did do it.
Yeah. Wow. That's an excellent, that's very telling. What, it, just to imagine what our military do. They really, and you're right, Mark, it's not just unique to you. We have amazing heroes, especially here in San Antonio, where we have such a large military population. So many of them adopt a purpose, and it kind of makes, what they do makes some sense. But then what I found in research is beginning to show us is that as our veterans are beginning to transition, there's this loss of purpose. And you've done something. You have found a way to take your trauma, and I know you're writing a book with your father. And what
Yeah.
you took your story and you created purpose for your life. Instead of just being a victim of circumstances, you've turned it around and you've created a narrative that you're a victor now. Tell us a little bit about the book. What is the book called, first of all? The name of the
Yes, my dad came up with the name. We're still bouncing the name around, but he named it "Suicide Stalks the Sniper."
Stalks the sniper. See, it's the other way around. Usually a sniper is the one that stalks people, right?
Yeah.
In this case, suicide stalked the sniper. And that tells the story of the things he went through. That last picture she put up there was one of his grueling year-long assignments where he wore 80 pounds of armor in sweltering hot weather and all day long, and had to identify foe from friend. It was very hard to do in protecting this big oil rig, and where almost all of the oil out of Iran came through this terminal.
Iraq,
So,
yeah.
Iraq,
Iraqi
right.
oil, yeah.
And so, he went through this horrible, horrible time. It was, I don't know how anybody could even stand up to it. He was so physically fit that he could do it, but most people would have collapsed under the requirements that he had. So that ended up causing him a back pain, and the back pain caused him, a great depression, and they could not help him. So he became very depressed, and like you say, he had this elaborate plan to commit suicide, and that's part of the book is telling about, because this went on for over a week while we were trying to catch him, and that is a story for a movie in itself.
It
But
is. And
after we rescued him, he was still quite depressed, but he was not suicidal anymore. And I think the point is now that he has really found a purpose, and I am so happy that he's writing this book with me, because I kept notes, he kept notes, and we're finally he's able to come out of his shell and share things with us that normally people would not share, his deepest thoughts.
That's
And
well,
to do that, a lot of courage, but I think it also is helping him, and it's going to help a lot of veterans and a lot of families that are facing this. Suicide is a huge, huge problem in the military.
it is. And if the audience is looking, Mark's body language, even now, Mark, I can see that this is a whole new chapter for you, but there's still some weight. I can see your breath,
yeah.
don't forget to breathe. So now you are living a new purpose, and you created,
Yes.
because when I met you, I remember sitting in the office in the lobby, and I told your dad, we need to help Mark find a purpose that's bigger than the pain. And of course, that's based on Dr. Viktor Frankl's work with the Holocaust survivors, where he said that disparity equals S minus M. And so we know this amazing formula is what, Mark, you actually took your suffering and added some meaning to it, which is now the book and telling your story. So you have created purpose in your life and a new reason to live. Did you know that you were making your brain younger at the same time?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'll have to thank you in that regard too. I thank God that you were able to have me look at a different angle. You kind of took me up to the mountain to look at how I look at things. And I think that's one of the problems with a lot of veterans. They're still stuck in a different purpose mind, a different purpose mind, and they don't realize that they can come outside that and recreate the new purpose mind. The military formed a purpose mind, but not only formed it, they ingrained it for 15 plus years of a certain way of thinking and behaving, and your mind got trained towards, I believe, the primal, of survival and thinking and protecting those that are by you and keeping those by you alive. And this identity is inground in you for so many years. But coming out of the military, how do we get the veterans out of this mindset to come out and look at the way they're thinking? And that's what you did. Thank God you were able to have me come out and re-look and reestablish my identity of who the Creator initially created me to be,
Yeah.
not what the government wanted me to be. I mean, I did what I had to do honorably, and I'm thankful I did it, but it did create neural pathways that were stuck.
Well, I think,
Good way
Mark,
to
it you had a servant's heart, you have a good heart, and what we brought out is what was already inside of you, which most people, the only thing I can take credit for is I knew the science. I knew that you wanted, your life needed to make sense. And we're seeing the suicide rates right now in our pandemic, and what we're going through in the world is up. Medication, psychotropic medication prescriptions are up 70%. And that's because life seems to have no meaning in all the futility and violence and random deaths that we're experiencing right now in our world. Life just doesn't seem to have any rhyme or reason. And when I met you, I saw that what you were looking for is something had to make sense. You're this amazing individual. You have, God-given talents to draw and tell your story, and it just didn't make sense. And you chose to create a new identity with what you knew about yourself, and it's just incredible. And now the book is giving you a restored sense of purpose. And sure enough, you're coming out of your depression. I'm excited to see what you're going to do this year with all the different ideas that you've got for your animals, for your art. So, really excited about your next chapter.
Yes, if I could just throw in a couple 2 cents. I believe that when we come into this world, we're born with certain talents and gifts that are given to us to benefit mankind and to help mankind, not to destroy mankind, but to help mankind. And sometimes those gifts are seen at an early age. And I'll just say an example, because all of us have different gifts that we bring to this world to help humanity. One of the gifts that I was given was to draw and paint. And even as a young kid, I would draw cartoons and paint. And as the years went on, I developed a very steady hand, because when you paint and draw, you have to have perfect precision. Well, consequently, when I went to serve our country and I did it to my very best, that talent happened to come out in shooting because of a steady hand that I had in painting and drawing. I just outshot people without even thinking about it. And even when they sent me to the sniper school up in North Carolina, Blackwater, I outshot everybody there too. And it wasn't that I was like more alpha or anything like that. Is I had this gift of a steady hand, but the identity was not to be a shooter. The original identity that the Creator gave me was to paint and to draw. So now that I'm back out of the military, I've regained my identity as a painter and a drawer.
And Mark, I hear in your speaking a lot about the resource of faith that you use. Was faith a big resource for you as well? Because it seems like purpose and faith kind of go hand in hand very often. Is that correct? So
Yes, everybody equates it in their mind a little differently, but for me, I'm very faith-based and moral-based. So for me, yes, the faith is crucial in the walk of life as we get put into horrifying struggles and things. You can only go so far with just brute resilience and grit. There has to be something you tap into way beyond yourself to get you through trauma. And it's not just military, it's abused children, it's people that are beat up, EMS and firefighters and things. They're going to have to eventually, when you run out of your mind and your physical muscle strength and your testosterone chutzpah, you're going to have to go and dig deep somewhere. And you're going to have to go into a reserve and you're going to have to pull out resilience somewheres.
that very well said, Mark. I think you're spot on. As a neuroscientist, there's tons of research that's talking about how the brain is able to override negative thinking and fatalistic thinking when there's belief in something bigger than itself. And I think you're a great example of that. Mark, is there anything else you would tell people as your now your book is coming out, and I think we're going to see a lot more of you in the public? Is there anything else you'd like to tell people about your journey, or anything you'd like to tell a veteran or a family member that might be listening today?
Yes, I would. First, belief in God and Creator. But beyond that, also, and with that, if there's a family member or a veteran watching, please look into the red flags of being overworked, overstressed, past your resilience and grit factor. Eventually, a rope will snap if it's pulled too far. And what we're beginning to see with EMS, military, and other folks, people are getting pushed past their limits. And one thing, if I could convey, watch your family members, watch your service members, watch your veterans, watch your EMTs and your firefighters, and start watching for what's called red flags. Because my dad, the red flags are right there, but you can save a life of a loved one by paying attention to the red flags.
Sure. And what we'll do is we
Well,
will.
that is very, very true. In fact, in the book, we're going to mention how many times I missed the red flag. I saw it and I blew it off. Well, Mark's a strong guy and he's just having a bad day. And I blew off these red flags, the red flags of what he said, what he wrote to us, the paintings he had, the fact that he sought help. I mean, there were so many red flags that I think as a parent, I should have reached out and done more for him, because at that time he was by himself. He did reach out to some of the people in the military, but instead of really helping him the way that you would help him, or the way a good counselor would help him, they just gave him a bunch of pills to keep him quiet and keep him, sedated, and that's their answer. And I think that once in a while these medications are helpful, but more often than not, they don't really get at the root of the problem. And I
Yeah.
saw so many sentinel events that I just missed. So we call this the red flags, and we had so many people miss the red flags in case of Mark, and he wasn't able to see them himself, and I should have seen them. So one of my messages too to the military and the military families is to watch your servicemen or servicewomen and look for these red flags, and don't just ignore them. They're not going to go away, and bad things happen.
Yeah, the resource of the book, being able to look at sort of the red flags, as you're calling them, but sort of the indicators, so we can prevent this from happening to one of our friends or family. I think that's going to be a huge asset that's going to be available in the book. The other thing I think too is creating a suicide prevention plan, and knowing what to do if you do think your family member is suicidal or friend is suicidal. What do you do next? What are the steps? So we can actually list them out at the bottom of this today. Part of this podcast, we can make that available. And one of the things, Dr. Miller, you and I have talked about before is you've talked about food as a medicine. And that's one of the things when we looked at, and here's the cover of Time magazine that talked about, and there's many articles on the Blue Zone research, but Dr. Miller, you've talked about food as a medicine. And specifically, you talked about what is happening with preservatives such as fructose. Can you talk just a little bit about that and how that's actually also destroying our planet, or our race, our human beings?
No, absolutely. This has been huge in my mind for a number of years, and so I've been on the warpath, if you will. But what I've seen over my lifetime is the obesity of the world, and especially the obesity of America. Whereas when I first graduated from medical school back in the Jurassic Age, people were nice and thin, and now 65% of the world is classified as being obese. And you look at that, obesity has a terrible toll on your life, on your happiness, on your self-esteem, and we could go on and on of how important this is. And people blame themselves, they blame all kinds of things for their obesity. And really, in most cases, it's not their fault. I think what we've seen, and if we study this over the years, it used to be that we ate more natural foods, vegetables, fruits, things that God made for us. But as the food industry matured, it found out that fructose is a very cheap type of sugar that's very, very sweet and very addicting. In fact, or fructose is 30 times more addicting than cocaine. It's very
Right.
hard to get rid of and very cheap. And so now they start putting fructose in everything that we eat. If you look at the soft drinks, look at Coke and all the soft drinks, they have fructose in them. Look at the so-called fresh fruits, juices that we drink. They're spiked with fructose. Look at ketchup. Look at salad dressing. Everything we find has fructose in it. Well, what fructose does, it's unlike other sugars that other sugars go into the liver and they're stored there until they're needed, and then they're used by the body for energy. But with fructose, it goes straight to fat. It doesn't even go into storage. The liver sends it right to the fat cells. And more important than that, it destroys our hormone that tells us we're full. We have a hormone that tells us we're full. We have another hormone that tells us we're still hungry. And what it does, it stimulates the hungry hormone and makes us want to eat more. And so the food industry has done two things. They've increased the sizes of our meals. They increased the fructose in it so that we want to eat more. And then that type of calorie goes straight to fat. So it becomes very difficult. More than that, this processed food, if you go into the grocery store, they have a little section of fresh fruits. Most of the store is full of processed foods. And you look at them, they have preservatives in them, they have salt, fat, sugar in them, and they're made to be very addictive. And they have a number of chemicals in them. You can't even pronounce the names of these chemicals. Well, this is not how our bodies were made. God didn't make us to eat all this processed food and to eat all this food with all this sugar in it. And so we are actually destroying our own bodies and our own health by eating this food. Most people, if they really knew and understood what's happening, they would take action. I mean, it may be kind of hard at first. It's like getting off cocaine. You have to maybe go cold turkey for a while. There are ways to help you get off this kind of a diet. But get back into the foods that God made for us, fresh fruits and vegetables. You can, I do eat some fish. I don't eat any mammals, any red meat, but I think that you need proteins, different kinds of diet. Look at the Mediterranean diet. It's a great diet with a little glass of wine at night. Those things really help us to relax. And the other thing beyond just living longer and beyond reducing obesity is the fact that we are improving our immune system. This last 2 years with COVID has proven that without a shadow of a doubt. Over 80% of people that die of COVID are obese. It's the number one comorbidity of causing, and the reason for that We know why, because people die from an overreaction of the immune system to fight this thing off. And it's called cytokinase. It's an enzyme, and we call it the cytokinase storm that happens. Well, cytokinase happens to reside in the fat cells. So people that are overweight have an overabundance of the cytokinase, and it ends up causing a reaction that the treatment's worse than the disease. And so it affects our immune system, and so does the stress that we're all going under. The stress is horrible for our immune system. And the fact that we don't get out and exercise, we don't get out in the sun and get vitamin D, all these things are lifestyles that all work together to make us vulnerable to this virus and other viruses and other, including cancer.
Right. Well, today, I mean, we're at the Brain Science Symposium, and what we know more and more, it's conclusive that there's a second brain in the gut, and there's neurons in the gut, and there's this direct communication between our gut and our brain. And so, can you imagine if someone would have talked to Mark about, instead of just a medication, could he have done some lifestyle changes, changed his diet? I mean, and today, wow, what a difference that would have made. But thank you so much, both of you, for being part of this and sharing with us. Again, we're talking about the Blue Zone research, and one of the largest indicators of a lifelong, a happier life, of a extended life, but not just a longer life, but a life that you want to live. One of them is purpose. And Mark, it's so great. It's such an honor to work with you and to see you seed out this new identity and create it by choice. And I know it's a daily battle that you choose.
Yes.
The reason for your existence instead of letting someone else choose for you.
And if I just may say, I want to say thank you, well, for both of you. Well, first for my dad contributing to saving my life, thank God. And then the other thing is, I want to thank you, Dr. Punjabi, because you were the first health professional that I actually got real help from. Mm-hmm. I know that's sad to say, but you were the first one that actually made a difference in me. Not only with the neurofeedback, the diet, the good thinking, but also the higher conscious and spiritual aspect, but also that you're a genuine helper. You're not just helping somebody, you actually care. So with all those things combined, you were one of the first doctors that I saw significant help. I went through all kinds of VA doctors and everybody, and I never had the help that you gave me. So I want to say thank you to both of you. Thank God. Yeah.
It's an honor. Thank you, both of you today. Thank you, Dr. Miller. Thank you so much, Mark, for being part of the Brain Science Symposium as we talk about what we need to do to live longer, healthier lives, including our brain, our gut, our nutrition. Thank you so much, guys. And we will be signing out. Guys, be part of the next group of speakers. We're going to have our annual Brain Science Symposium. COVID or virus or flu will not stop us getting out the message about how important it is to live your life by choice, by design. This is your Brain Science Symposium signing out. Thank you.
Thank you.